Hey there, and welcome. Today, we are going to decode some of those crucial PMP keywords that everyone talks about. But forget about boring, dry definitions. We're actually going to take a journey through a project's entire life cycle. From that first little spark of an idea all the way to the final success. I really think it's the best way to make these terms stick.
Does project management jargon ever feel like you're trying to learn a completely different language? If you're not in your head right now, you are definitely in the right place. We're about to turn all that confusion into clarity, using a simple framework that will help you use these terms with real confidence. So let's start at the very beginning.
Every single project starts right here. I mean it. Before any of the planning, before building a team, you absolutely have to lay the foundation. And this whole first phase, it really just boils down to answering one single fundamental question.
And that question, it's not what and it's not how. It's something way more fundamental. It is the why. This is the core reason for being, the justification that's going to guide every single decision you make from here on out.
And here we have it. The formal answer to that why question is the business case. Now, I want you to think of this as more than just some document you create and then forget about. No, it's the living, breathing justification for why this project deserves anyone's time, money, and resources.
So here's the key takeaway, the little cue for your brain. Anytime you need to justify why a project should even exist, the key word to remember is why. The business case is your ultimate why document. Simple as that.
Okay, so at this early stage, you're also identifying two other critical things. First, you have assumptions. These are things you believe are true for now, but, and this is key, you have to validate them. Constraints are different. They're your non-negotiables, the fixed walls you have to work within, like a hard deadline or a set budget. All right, our why is established, it's solid, so now it's time to create the blueprint. This whole phase is about defining the what and the when. And these definitions, they become the foundation, the yardstick we'll use to measure our progress. Now this right here, these are your project's anchor points. The scope baseline tells you exactly what is included in the project and, just as important, what isn't. The schedule baseline is your approved timeline. I want you to think of them as your official reference points. If you start to deviate from these, you know you're veering off course. And speaking of veering off course, one of the biggest threats to that scope baseline is a notorious project killer called scope creep. This is what happens when all those little, hey, can you just add this one thing, requests start piling up without any formal approval, slowly but surely derailing your whole plan.
And this gets right to the heart of the problem. The key word for scope creep is unauthorized. Look, a formal change request that updates your baseline, that's just managing the project. But scope creep is all about those sneaky, unapproved additions that can completely sink you.
Okay, so we've got our justification and our plan. But projects aren't built by documents, right? They're built by people. So let's shift our focus to the human element and the modern way of thinking about project leadership.
You can just forget the old command and control, top-down leadership style. Today's PMP approach is all about servant leadership. And that means your main job isn't to dictate orders from on high, it's to support, to enable, and to serve the needs of your team.
So what's the single most important job of a servant leader? What does that really look like day to day? It's simple. Remove impediments. You are the obstacle clearer. Your goal is to create a clear runway for your team so they can do their absolute best work, totally unblocked and focused.
This leadership style really rests on two pillars. First, you facilitate collaboration. You don't force it. You create the environment where great teamwork can happen. And second, you empower the team. And you do that by giving them autonomy and, this is the most important part, the trust to manage their own work. Okay, let's be realistic for a second. No project goes exactly according to plan. Things go wrong. It's just a fact. The mark of a great project manager isn't preventing every single problem, but knowing how to manage that inevitable chaos with a clear, structured approach.
So this shows the logical flow for handling problems. You start by identifying risks. These are potential problems that could happen. Now, when a risk actually happens, it becomes an issue, a problem that's happening right now, which you track in an issue log. But you don't just fix the symptom. You do a root cause analysis to figure out why it happened in the first place.
And that brings us to a really critical distinction. A corrective action is reactive. You have to fix the cause of a problem that already happened to get back on track.
A preventive action, on the other hand, is proactive. You're taking steps now to prevent a potential problem from ever even happening.
All right, we've planned, we've led our team, and we've managed the chaos. Now we get to the most important part, delivering actual value. This final phase is all about making sure that all that hard work creates a real, tangible benefit for the organization.
Yeah, gone are the days of the big bang delivery at the very end of a project. The modern approach, which is central to agile thinking, is incremental delivery. You deliver working, usable parts of the project in small pieces. This lets you get feedback and provide value much earlier in the process. You can see how this ties right back to servant leadership. It takes trust to let your team deliver these pieces independently.
So how in the world do you decide what to deliver first? Through prioritization. You always focus on the work with the highest value. This makes sure you're not just being busy, but being effective. The goal here is value delivery, achieving measurable business outcomes, not just checking a bunch of tasks off a list.
Finally, how do we get better? How do we make sure the next project, or even the next week, is better than the last? We look back. A retrospective is a dedicated time for the team to just pause and talk about what went well, what didn't, and what they're going to change to improve in the next cycle. It's the engine that drives continuous improvement.
So, as we wrap all this up, you can start to see how all these keywords connect to these core PMP mindsets. It's really about being analytical, serving your team, always focusing on value, embracing change instead of just following a plan, and never, ever stopping the learning process. These principles are the real secret sauce to project success. We've journeyed through the entire project lifecycle, and hopefully, we've decoded some key PMP terms along the way. So now, the question is for you. How are you going to apply this? Think about your current work, your studies. What's the first keyword from our journey that you can put into practice, maybe even today? Thanks for joining me.